I thought this might be fun. There is this game, educational game, mind you, on the Financial Times website. Can you reach net zero by 2050? And you're meant to go through and make a number of choices to save the planet from the worst effects of climate change. I have no idea if this is good. It's been put together by 3 Financial Times journalists. I'm assuming it's reasonably well informed. I'm also probably thinking there's going to be some value choices going in there. You may end up with multiple choice where you don't get presented with the option that you would most like. But I thought it might be quite good fun to just do it live on camera. Well, not live, on camera. And you can join me on the journey. And you can tell me how you would have gone if you had been doing it. Your goal: you need to keep global warming to 1.5 C by cutting energy-related carbon dioxide emissions to net zero by 2050. Okay. This game is based on published scientific research and bespoke modelling by the International Energy Agency for the FT. All right. Well, let's have a go. The planet is counting on you. Welcome to the game. After another wave of extreme weather, world leaders want to get serious about climate change. They appoint you the Global Minister for Future Generations. Sounds like a Mickey Mouse job title if I ever heard one. To make the decisions squabbling nations have dodged for decades, which they have been, to be fair. Global temperatures have already risen by 1.2 degrees C compared with pre-industrial average. You have 3 rounds covering the years from 2022 to 2050. Use your sweeping global powers to cut emissions to zero and keep temperatures below 1.5 C. But you will not be alone in your quest. So these are sweeping global powers. I hadn't picked up on this originally. Global Minister for Future Generations. Okay, well, that's not a Mickey Mouse job title. That's sort of like Emperor of the World sort of job title. That's a heady responsibility. Let's hope that I'm up to it. Choose your advisor. Okay, your advisor will use their specialist knowledge to help you cut emissions. Who do you pick? Gina Green, specialist skill, teen activist. Because, of course, if you're in charge of a world, the thing you most need is the advice of a teenage activist. Yeah, I don't imagine we'll be troubling her. Waldo Watts, specialist skill, entrepreneur developing new technologies. Well, that could be useful. David Deal, specialist skill, businessman influencing global leaders. Well, could be interesting. Sort of all sorts of depends on that. There's no such thing as a generic businessman. But anyway, Catalina Congress, specialist skill, politician driving policy change. I'm not sure I've heard being a politician described as a specialist skill before now, but it is important if you're going to get all the trade-offs right and understand how these things might play with your various constituencies. So, which of those is going to be my advisor? I think maybe I will go for... I can't decide. Alexa, give me a random number between 1 and 3.
Here's a number between 1 and 3.
1, 2, 3.
2.
2. Okay, so we've got Waldo Watts. All right, let's cut emissions ASAP. You have a budget of 100 effort points to spend on saving the planet and adapting to a hotter world. Answers will cost more as you progress through the game, but smart investments will earn you points back. Run out entirely and the game will end and the planet is doomed. Okay, I added that bit. As you play, the planet will change in response to your actions. Be careful. Round 1, 2022 to 2025. Electricity. Coal makes up 3/4 of the CO2 produced by electricity. Will you let the market take its course and coal demand will fall? Phase out coal plants in wealthy countries over 10 to 20 years. Stop all new coal plants globally and close those in wealthy countries. Well, I'm going to be quite aggressive on coal because I think we do know that that has to be tackled. So does that mean phasing out coal in wealthy countries over 10 to 20 years? It doesn't give a timescale for closing the ones in wealthy countries, but I suspect it means, because it's more effort, I suspect it means do it straight away. That's not realistic. So I'm going to phase out coal plants in wealthy countries over 10 to 20 years. Not optimum as far as the activists are concerned, but, people need to stay warm. Investing in innovation, cutting emissions in all areas need new technologies. True. Each innovation costs 5 points and will double your investment if your choice takes off. Select one or more of the following: better electric vehicle batteries, sustainable fuel for planes, carbon capture from factories, reforestation using drones, green hydrogen, and roads made of solar panels. Okay, better electric vehicle batteries. I don't think the global government that I seem now to be heading needs to be putting money into that. The market will take care of that. It should only be those things where the market won't already have a role. So sustainable fuel for planes certainly needs some extra support. Carbon capture from factories certainly needs some extra support, because the business case for that will develop over time, but it doesn't start straight away. You have to get to a certain scale before it kicks in. Roads made of solar panels, I think that just sounds like a stupid idea. Green hydrogen, yes, we need infrastructure before that's going to become viable. Reforestation using drones, no, I don't think so. Okay, that's my choice. Good work. I'll get onto this now and report back ASAP. Wow. Right, transport. Transport is the fastest growing CO2 emissions problem and car sales are going up. What is your policy? Invest in electric cars, make traditional car engines more efficient. Ban all global sales of traditional cars by 2035 and invest in electric cars. Invest in self-driving car pooling to cut congestion. That seems pretty token. So by 2025, global sales of traditional cars. That's a bit radical. But by 2025, by 2035, probably. I think that's. Ooh, I did well on that bit of radicalism. I've won an award. Jobs. Transforming the road transport sector has led to millions of new jobs. Hasn't put anyone out of work, just created new jobs. Well, it's great being dictator of the world. I'm doing really well. What could possibly go wrong? Buildings and construction make up almost 1/3 of energy use. Cities are growing fast in developing countries. What will you do? Ban global coal and oil boiler sales by 2025. 2025. Worldwide. Now that's a bit radical. And roll out heat pumps. What? Worldwide by 2025. Are you insane? I'll say that again. Improve efficiency standards for cooling and other appliances, which seems pretty minimal. Mandate that cities must knock down all poorly insulated homes worldwide. Again, I come back to the "are you insane" question. Okay, well, so I did predict that we would get choices that would be less than optimal, because really what you do in developing countries and how exactly that's going to work would logically be different to what the wealthiest, already highly developed countries would do. So I'm not overly keen on any of those, so I'm going to go for the least effort one: improve efficiency standards for cooling and other appliances, knowing that that is poor. I might get punished. It's good that I didn't have the green teenager, because she would have been giving me hell right now. West Antarctic ice sheet disintegration, climate tipping points. Well done for your hard work so far. Unfortunately, the carbon dioxide already in the atmosphere is changing the Earth dramatically. Tipping points are looming, which it says it's based on research. They should. You can't do a game on the basis that tipping points might be looming. I get it. They've got to paint a scenario, so that's the scenario they're painting. All right, fine, okay. These are critical climate thresholds that once passed can lead to irreversible changes. The more you cut emissions, the fewer tipping points. In Antarctica, a giant iceberg almost the size of Greater London has broken off, a sign that the West Antarctic ice sheet may be becoming more unstable. Let's find out what has happened. Dun, dun, dun. The ice sheet remains stable. Hooray! The sea level is still rising, but the worst has been averted, at least for now. Whew. Thank goodness. It's exciting, this game. Are you excited? I'm excited. Industry. Whether cement, steel or glass manufacturing causes lots of pollution, industry alone makes up about a quarter of energy-related CO2 emissions. What do you want to do first? Ban all disposable coffee cups? Okay, and start a campaign to recycle old bicycles. I'm guessing we can aim higher, but who knows? Demand that 40% of steel and 15% of plastics comes from recycled materials by 2030. Yeah, okay, steel is highly recyclable. Plastics, yeah, that would be possible, I guess. Give financial breaks to people who recycle their small electronics, which, again, I mean, fine, but if that's the limit of your industry round, that seems a bit tame. I'm going to go full in on that one. Demand! That's what I'm going to do. Yo, I've got news. One of my team at Feasible Inc. has made a breakthrough in battery technology. This is massive for the clean tech revolution. Even my dog Slokey is keyed up. Collect 10 points. Oh, okay. All helps, I suppose. Methane. Your goal is to keep global warming to 1.5 C, and this means dealing with greenhouse gases other than CO2. Global methane emissions account for about 1/3 of human-caused warming. Do you want to deal with methane now? And it's effort 0 points to say no, surprisingly. Cutting CO2 is the number one priority. Deal with methane later. Or I could put in 20 points worth of effort, which is huge. Focus on methane. The problem is urgent. Now, there's a picture of cows in the background. I can't help but wonder that focusing on methane might lead us into, telling people what they should be eating and that kind of thing. But he doesn't say that. It just says focus on methane. So, all right, let's see what that means. Good choice. Slashing methane emissions is the quickest way to slow global warming because it traps far more heat than CO2, doesn't last as long in the atmosphere. Stopping gas leaks, covering landfills, flooding old coal mines, and less beef and dairy in diets will significantly cut methane emissions, a huge step towards net zero. So you're telling me I've done those things then? You didn't tell me I was going to be doing those things. You just said I was going to be slashing methane, and now you've had me as world dictator telling people what they're allowed to eat. I am not a fan of this. I can't go back. I have to collect these 10 points. But this is bad. I'm becoming the sort of world dictator that Klaus Schwab taught you to fear. Okay, land use. Agriculture and the loss of trees is the largest cause of greenhouse gas emissions after energy. How will you tackle those and improve nature's ability to absorb CO2? Reduce deforestation by 2/3 by 2050 and plant hundreds of millions of hectares of native forest, which sounds ambitious, but yeah, reduce deforestation by 2/3. Well, we really ought to be able to stop deforestation by 2050, surely. I mean, shouldn't we? Seems to me that more ambition would be possible there. Allow land use emissions to fall naturally, which means doing bugger all. Support companies buying voluntary carbon offsets to protect forests. Voluntary carbon offsets, well, that's next to zero as well. I'm going to go for, I'm turning out to be quite radical. Well done for taking bold action, yes! Land use contributes a quarter of human-caused greenhouse gas emissions through the cutting down of trees for farming, poor soil and rice paddy management. Cutting them significantly is a huge step towards saving the planet. Complete round one. I've won another award, the Nature Award. Planting hundreds of millions of trees has improved the health of the world's forests. It did say native forests, so yeah, that works. Collects another 10 points. Cool, look at this. I'm doing so well, except it says you must do more to cut energy-related emissions. Select a sector for more detail on why. Presumably, if I'd had the green teenager, she'd have said, "You'd have done nothing! You have done nothing!" So glad I didn't choose that one. All right, round 2. Public opinion. Polling shows some voters think you're moving too fast. Probably all the beef eaters, I should imagine. And they are worried electricity bills will soar. How will you get them on side? Persuade them that it's a good idea? The old-fashioned way? What do we got? Start a global advertising campaign on climate change and green jobs. Advertising campaign? Well, how about just politicians making an argument, making the case, trying to persuade people? I mean, I suppose you could call that an advertising campaign if you want, as long as we're not talking nudge unit, surreptitious stuff. But of course, it doesn't give you that option, does it? Ask Twitter to promote the hashtag Save Our Planet, and that's worth 2 points of effort, apparently. I don't think so. And just ignore them is the 0 option. Well, I suppose I'm going to go for an advertising campaign, but I want it noted. One with integrity, please. Your campaign is working, and people are excited about the potential jobs that will come with the green wave. I think they're highly overstating the power of advertising, but could be wrong. Polling shows voters are giving you a mandate for bolder action. Which voters are these then? Because this is global. Did we create global government by starting this game? If we did, then I apologise to everyone. I did not mean to impose a global government on you. However, I collect 5 points anyway. Electricity. You've decided how you want to deal with coal. What will you do next about electricity? Invest 2 trillion a year in renewable electricity, about 1% of projected global GDP. Gradually expand renewable electricity and invest in energy storage, which you really ought to do. Investing in renewable electricity without the storage isn't really going to get the baby bathed. Pump 4 trillion a year into all clean energy sources, which I assume would include nuclear and things like that. Hydrogen. So that's more effort, that's most effort, but I think that is the best rounded one. We do need to put down some proper energy infrastructure. Once again, I've won an equality award. How did that happen? Investing in clean energy has made it easier for developing nations to decarbonise. Okay. I'm an equality champion, apparently. That was rather easy. Adaptation. Despite your efforts so far, carbon already in the atmosphere is causing the world to get hotter, which it would do. How many points would you like to spend on adaptation to help improve people's lives, protect them from heat waves, floods, wildfires and rising seas in the future? And we've got 0 or some. Cutting emissions is more important. Don't spend on adaptation, which would be a stupid option, let's face it. Adaptation is really important. Build infrastructure that will help people live on a hotter planet. Well, yeah, obviously. It's a bit of a no-brainer, really. Transport. Transport is not only about cars. No kidding. What will you do to address emissions from planes? Well, I invested in innovation in alternative fuels, didn't I? Mandate 20% low-carbon fuel for aviation. Cap the number of long-haul flights. Introduce a frequent flyer tax. Or develop a fuel-powered hypersonic plane that can travel from London to Sydney in 4 hours to cut commercial flight times. That doesn't sound especially ecological. Gradually introduce low-carbon fuel for aviation. Well, this is weird. Mandate 20% low-carbon fuel. If low-carbon fuel is available in that quantity, then mandating it would not be a bad thing. But then in the very next sentence it says cap the number of long-haul flights. So starting to ration flying. Not a fan. So I can't do anything about the 20% low-carbon fuel, even if it is available, because I'm not prepared to introduce that sort of interference with people's freedom to choose to travel. So I'm left with gradually introduce low carbon fuel for aviation, I guess. Fair enough. Oh, I bring good news. Your bet on green hydrogen is paying off. The price of machines that make hydrogen is falling. Making hydrogen from water and clean power is set to be one of the cheapest sources of energy in the world. Little bit of wishful thinking into that scenario, I am guessing. Research that you funded into carbon capture, utilisation and storage is also yielding results. The capture of carbon from smokestacks is more efficient and starting to cut factory emissions. Collect 20 points. Woohoo! However, climate tipping point. Coral reefs dying. Marine heat waves are threatening the world's coral reefs. The next one forecast to hit the Caribbean could bleach the coral beyond repair. Well, be careful about that because coral does often repair. I'm not saying that we shouldn't worry about coral reefs. I would love to see the Great Barrier Reef, and I don't think that if I take too long about it, that will be a cert. Disaster strikes! The marine heatwave is intense. The corals now gone forever. Fish stocks collapse, depriving residents of food and work. You must send aid to limit the unrest. Send 5 points. Wow, it's one of them climate disasters you keep hearing about. Buildings. What will you do next to tackle emissions from buildings? Rule that new buildings must be zero carbon, for example, with good insulation, but only in rich countries. Which I was given a more extreme option than that in the previous round. So it's good that I didn't choose that one, because that one would be pretty redundant by now, although I suppose it might change depending on what you've chosen. Deal with both old and new buildings, retrofit 20% of the old ones, declare all new buildings must be zero carbon. So declaring standards for new buildings is relatively low cost politically and practically. That is always something that you can do. The low effort, although it's given 10 points worth of effort, this one, paint all building rooftops white to deflect the sun. Is that worth 10 points, do we think? I'm not so sure. I'm going to go with retrofit 20% of the old ones and declare new buildings will be zero carbon. Because remember, this is some way in the future. This isn't straight away. Carbon price. Economic incentives can also help cut carbon emissions. Polluters in Europe paying about $100 for every tonne that is released. Do you want to set a global carbon price? And the answers are no. Carbon pricing has not worked well anyway. Zero effort. Yes, set a carbon price that rises to $250 per tonne for developed countries by 2050, which I think is pretty much broadly the status quo plan. I'm not sure. Yes, set a carbon price now for $1,000 per tonne. This will add $2.3 per litre to petrol and also fuel a number of interesting and exciting revolutions across the world. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that one. So carbon pricing has it. Environmental taxation, environmental pricing has a place if it makes the markets more efficient because things that genuinely cost get brought into the real price of something. That said, carbon markets have been pretty scammy to date because how you value carbon and how you calculate it, it's great in theory, it's really problematic in practice. I'm going to stick my neck out and get big demerit points from the technocracy, and I'm going to say no to carbon pricing. Bad move! Without a carbon price, the transition to a low-carbon economy is going to be more expensive. Introducing a carbon price at $250 per tonne would have been a better idea. Well, maybe game creators, that would have been a better idea. There's probably alternative views on that, I'm guessing. Industry. Improving recycling was important for cutting industrial emissions. What's next? Invest $200 billion annually in reducing industry emissions. such as through carbon capture and storage, make cement and aluminium production more efficient, commission a research project. Oh, that's a waste of time. Investing 200 billion annually in reducing emissions. Well, yeah, carbon capture, steel using hydrogen, yeah. Ooh, I've won an award. The Growth Award. Pushing through a carbon price has shifted businesses towards responsible growth. But I didn't push through a carbon price. Oops! I've got a surreptitious award I don't deserve. I think I got away with it. Your decision to invest in aviation industry innovation is starting to pay off, and more planes are using fuels made from waste oils and algae. Okay, I'm not sure I'd want to fly on one of them, but I'm sure it's fine. Collect 10 points. Okay, that's the end of round 2. You are not doing enough to cut energy-related emissions. Well, blimey, I think I've done quite a lot, to be fair. What have we got? CO2 gigatons 9.3 down, 24.9 remaining. Effort points spent 126, remaining 59. Well, blimey. All right, final round. You're still with me here. Newsflash. Report suggests previous decisions by the Global Minister for Future Generations, I thought I was the first one of those, are going to have a significant impact on how much it will cost to tackle climate change over the next 20 years. Good luck. Okay, don't know what that was all about. Electricity. How do you want it to be generated in 2050? Renewables, nuclear, fossil fuels. And we've got 32% fossil fuels, 20% fossil fuels, 2% fossil fuels. Well, if we're aiming for net zero by 2050, surely it has to be the 2%. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of net zero. So, now, okay, you could say, yes, but China's not going to be zero by then because they're aiming for 2060. And India's not going to be zero then because they're aiming for 2070. So, yes, that's true. Being pragmatic about the state of the world, we should go for the middle one, which is a mere 15 points effort, but I bet I'm going to get hell for it. Our next report is from Carbon Valley, where residents have been calling for cleaner air, shadier public spaces and green travel options. Okay. Started to see benefits of Global Minister for Future Generations' decision to invest in adapting to climate change. Air pollution falling, people are healthier and happier. Collect 15 points. Healthy, happy people, eh? Amazon rainforest dieback, climate tipping point. Much of the Amazon is on the brink of changing from rainforest to dry savanna after years of deforestation. Any more logging could make it irreversible. Let's see what happens next. This is closer than it should be. Genuinely a concern. A president who wants to protect the rainforest takes office. Crisis averted, at least temporarily. Ah, yes, because democracy, you see, you elect the right person, the right green-minded person, and magic just happens. Isn't politics wonderful? Transport. Population and economic growth mean that road transport is on the rise. How will you deal with it from 2030 to 2050? Electrify all new buses, vans and lorries and push for almost all vehicles on the road to be electricity by 2050. Build tunnels under cities for vehicles to reduce traffic jams. Push for electric vehicles to make up almost half of cars on the road by 2050. So remember, this is globally again. So building tunnels under cities, no. If Elon Musk does well, then he'll do it for free. Doesn't need global government. Electrify all new buses, vans and lorries. Push for almost all vehicles on the road to be electric by 2050. Globally, no, that's not possible. I don't think. So we're going to go for almost half. Big heat wave is about to strike the megacity of Dystopiana. Population 20 million. More than 1 million people are vulnerable and could die from prolonged exposure. The region has already been severely affected by heat and drought over the past decade. This could spark civil unrest. Dun dun dun. Go live to Dystopiania. It looks like forward planning by the Global Minister for Future Generations means the city is adapting to this extreme weather. Heat shelters are everywhere, and buildings such as schools and clinics have been repurposed to give refuge to the most vulnerable. Collect 15 points. There you go, see? That's what you need. A global dictator to say you have to adapt. Problem solved. Diet. Oh, here we go. Now, I thought I'd already... Okay, let's see. Policy changes and new technologies won't be enough. Human behaviour will have to adapt too. Will it now? I see. How will you reduce emissions from the food that people eat? Announce that all protein in diets must now come from insects. Yeah, right. Okay. Invest in research to improve crop production. Well, that at least makes sense. Promote plant-based foods to reduce meat and dairy in diets, which I thought I'd already been tricked into doing, but apparently I have choice, which is good. Well, promoting plant-based food at least is better than telling people that they don't have a choice. So, okay. But why not just work on innovation to reduce the emissions from meat production? Because I don't see that there as an option. Do you? No. So I'm going to go for invest in research to improve crop production on the basis that that covers crops and also meat production, improving the efficiency of agricultural production. Your research into new crops is helping make agriculture more efficient, but livestock emissions remain high. Burping cows. Promoting plant-based foods to reduce meat would have been the right decision. Lose 5 points. Well, there you go. That is the word. All right, buildings. Building emissions have fallen, but not by enough. How will you get them to zero? Launch a mass training program for builders, because that's going to revolutionise the world. Incentivise people to have more plants in their homes and gardens to capture CO2. I don't think that's going to make the difference. Fully retrofit 85% of existing buildings by 2050 and encourage cold washes for clothes and line drying. Now, for the UK, by 2050, that seems possible. That seems doable if we were working on it between now and then. Worldwide? Really? All the mega cities in developing countries? No, that's crazy. So, what does that leave me with? Plants? Training? Nothing very... Okay. Can I just ignore it? Please choose an answer. Now I've got to do one of them. They are all rubbish. I know what I'm meant to tick. How many points have I got? I've got 57 points, and that would take 40 of them. I don't know how much longer this has got. So incentivise people to have more plants in their homes, because everyone loves plants, don't they? That's well worth 15 points of everyone's money. Critical minerals. There is a shortage of critical minerals such as copper, lithium and cobalt because of high demand for their use in batteries and wind turbines. Who could have seen that coming? What do? Send a mission to Mars to mine for lithium. And that's down as 15 points worth of effort. I'm thinking that would take a bit more effort than that, don't you? Nothing. So we've got go to Mars or nothing. I'm guessing the other option is probably going to be the right one. Let the market take care of itself. And then invest in research in new and recycled materials. Okay, well, copper, lithium, cobalt, they're all recyclable. So yeah, why not? Great decision. Your research into new and recycled materials was the right choice. Oh, it's good when you make the right choice. The shortage is subsiding. Because there you are, you see, children. If you make the right choices, good things happen. Industry emissions are the hardest to get to zero. What will you do to cut them by 2050? Set national goals to gradually increase hydrogen use and use of carbon capture and storage. Okay, well, yeah, but that makes sense. And they're national goals, so presumably each country's goals are different depending on their current development and infrastructure, so that would make sense. Or significantly expand the use of green hydrogen for industrial production, scale up carbon capture and storage in steel and cement plants. Well, that also makes sense. So you could probably do both of those. Can I choose two? No. Build state-of-the-art steel mills to make steel mill making more efficient. Well, if you're doing a lot of green hydrogen and carbon capture and storage, then that feeds into that anyway. So you've made it to 2050. Let's find out if your hard work has paid off. Now, here's my prediction. Since I made a few suboptimal choices as far as the theory goes, I'm guessing that I did not make 1.5 degrees C. Shall we find out? A valiant effort. You gave it a good go, but your policies weren't bold enough to avoid the worst effects of climate change. However, it could have been much worse. Every emissions cut we make improves the world we live in. What's the temperature? I couldn't even guess. The temperature is... The planet is on course for 1.58. Well, that is pretty good. Come on. I think that's pretty good. And we didn't have to tell people they weren't allowed to fly. We didn't have to tell people what they were supposed to eat. We didn't have to do coercive things except for appointing a global dictator who would hand down these policies for the entire world, which would then be followed by the entire world, of course, because that's exactly what would happen in real life. How you compare? Well, I'm in the middle. There you go. 43% of people did better than me. They knew what the right answers were at all times, and they got below 1.5 degrees. A few retrograde duffers like me who actually think that, people enjoying prosperity and freedom might be a thing. Well, B grade, B minus maybe. At least I wasn't in the duffer zone of 17 to 2 or the absolute deniers zone of the 2% that have fried the planet. So there you go. That was fun. What do we learn from that? There's some serious stuff in there, which is that, of course, a lot of those are going to be choices that decision makers are looking at, investing in different technologies. Trade-offs will be more of a thing than the game is able to put in, and that's fine. It's just a game, and they have to give you a firm scenario. And of course, they're going to do things that encourage you to take different choices and stuff. It's all part of the game, not to be taken too seriously. Nevertheless, obviously, it's not just down to the science of what technologies are. There's also assumptions in there about how decisions get made, what are the important factors. Nothing in there about geopolitics, all a pretend thing that you can pull a lever and things happen. That isn't the world that we live in, so whatever we end up doing, it ain't going to look like that. Hope you enjoyed this. This was a longer video than I thought it was going to be because it took longer to go through. If you want to do it yourself, then why not go there and have a look? I'll put a link in the video description below, but it's ig.ft.com/slimate/game and see if you can do better than I did. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please share with anyone else you think would also enjoy it. Word of mouth is really important to us. And if you've not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? As the saying goes, that subscribe button won't smash itself.